Excellent. Thank you. So this is the Yolo County Transportation District Board of Directors, Monday, September 20th. I'll call the meeting to order pursuant to the governor's executive order. We're conducting this meeting remotely. It's a very simple and straightforward to provide verbal comments to us via Zoom application. Do your raise hand function. We do have opportunity for public comment during the meeting in a couple of places. One is for general comment in a few minutes, and then there will be opportunities for public comment verbally for the items that we'll be considering tonight. If you're joining us via telephone, you'll press *9 to indicate that you're interested in providing comment. We did receive written comment on the agenda items for this evening that were provided to us in advance of the 4 p.m. deadline this afternoon. And so we'll have all the board members have received those written comments, and as well we'll be able to take a look at those. Sometimes people have a difficult time accessing the meeting. If you do have any challenges doing that, you can email Kathy Souza at ksouza@yctd.org. Now those emails are basically for assistance in accessing the meeting. Sometimes people need that kind of help, but we won't be receiving written comments during our meeting, just to be clear about that. We are ready to begin this special meeting of the board. We do have a quorum. Would the clerk call the roll so that and by the way, colleagues, please identify yourself by name when you are interested in speaking or making a motion, because some of the members of the public may not recognize your voice. And I'm Don Saylor, the 2021 chair of our board of directors. It'll be good. I'll make sure that I look around and make sure that we're allowing full participation by each member of the board and staff as we get into our conversations. So clerk, would you please call the roll of the board of directors?
City of Davis.
I'm here.
City of West Sacramento.
Here.
City of Winters.
Here.
City of Woodland.
Here.
Yolo County.
Here.
UC Davis.
Here. Thank you.
Caltrans District 3.
Here.
You have your quorum, sir.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And this is a special meeting of September 20th, 21. Is there anything you'd like to change, Executive Director Bernstein?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right, very good. So is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved. Ledesma.
Okay, so Stallard moves approval of the agenda, and Ledesma has made the second to that motion. Would you please call the roll on approval of the agenda?
City of Davis.
Aye.
City of West Sacramento.
Aye.
City of Winters.
Aye.
City of Woodland.
Aye.
Yolo County.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Very good. And that brings us to item 3 on our agenda, and this is for comments from members of the public on matters not on the agenda but within the purview of this agency. Please note that because these items are not on the agenda, we don't have the legal authority to discuss them. It's also not fair to people who are not here to talk about topics that weren't posted. Are there any persons and we will have a 2-minute limit on conversation and comments if you can. So are there any people who'd like to address us on matters not on our agenda?
And we do have one request for comment, Chair Saylor.
All right, and who?
He's a Colin Ruan.
Let's see, very good. Colin Ruan, you can please address us for 2 minutes. Is your item on something not on our agenda?
Hi, thank you for your time. Kind of. It's related to the suspension of the commuter routes, but it's not exclusively. So I figured I would share it here. Personally, I am opposed to the suspension of the routes, but I want to address the root cause of it, which is the short staffing of drivers. I did a quick research and compared to SAC-RT, which has base pay of drivers at $21.77 an hour, TransDev only offers $17 an hour as the starting pay for the drivers. I don't think that's fair. Actually, in personal conversations with drivers, I think a much more beneficial consideration would be to look into increasing pay for bus drivers. So negotiating with TransDev to get better contracts for drivers so that there is a greater incentive to work in a really stressful and underappreciated but important job. And I know that Congress is working on the transportation bill. So if that passes and money comes down the pipe, I would really appreciate it if you all would take that in consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comment. Are there any other comments on items not on our agenda? I don't see any, Jose. And nothing
I
else?
do not have any additional requests at this time.
Very good. Thank you. That brings us to item 4, which is board member reports, announcements, other nominations, presentations. Colleagues, do any of you have anything to share? Okay, I don't see anything. So that moves us to item 5, which is we have 2 items that are somewhat related. Item 5 is we will conduct a public hearing after we've heard a staff report on item 5 on the consideration of suspension of YOLO bus routes 43, 43R, 45, and 230. And we will consider under item 6 a revised temporary operating assistance agreement in Davis and a budget amendment for that. Director Bernstein, would you like to begin the presentation?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. As you indicated, the 2 items before you tonight are connected. And so we've put them as 2 separate items in your packet, but what I'd like to do is give a single staff presentation that covers 3 topics. First is providing an update on the driver shortage, that is the root cause of all the actions we're proposing tonight. I'm going to lead that piece, and I've also asked our TransDev General Manager, Michael Klein, to be here tonight to be a part of that conversation, and he's graciously agreed. Second, we want to talk about the proposed suspension of services on Route 43, 45, and 230, and Kristen Mazer is going to give that portion of the presentation that corresponds to item 5 on your agenda. And then lastly, we want to talk about the proposed reduction of assistance to Unitrans, and that is item 6, and Jose is going to cover that piece. So with your permission, Mr. Chair, we'll give that presentation and then we'll take questions from the board, and then we'll have the public hearing on the service cuts and then move on to the Unitrans item.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, great. So just to kick things off on the driver shortage, as you know, YCTD contracts with TransDev to provide all the necessary staff to operate, maintain, and dispatch our buses. On September 1st, we were informed by TransDev that they did not have sufficient drivers to meet the planned service expansions that we had, the Route 42 expansion that was scheduled to launch on September 12th, and the temporary Unitrans assistance that we had planned to launch on September 22nd, the day after tomorrow. How exactly we got to this place remains not entirely clear. But as you know, my first day at YCTD coincidentally was September 1st, the same day that we received the news of the staffing shortage. What is clear is that we are not alone in this challenge. Indeed, this is a national crisis. As recent national reporting has made clear, in Massachusetts, the governor has mobilized the National Guard to drive school buses. So we are not alone in facing this problem. But what is also clear is that we did not get to this place overnight. TransDev has provided data about staff turnover going back the last 3 years. And it's clear from looking at that data that we've had high turnover for quite some time. In the past, we were always able to hire new drivers to replace those who left, but that is not happening now. So we sent a letter of deficiency to TransDev on September 10th, letting them know that we felt that they were deficient in their performance of their contract with us. We received a response to that letter on Friday, September 17th. We are in conversation with them on potential solutions and hope to bring some recommendations to you as soon as possible, ideally by the October board meeting. But that is not what we're here to talk about tonight, although of course we will welcome your questions on that. And I will say, you know, what our focus is tonight is to talk about the immediate decisions that we need to make to meet our commitments as best as possible to our riders and our partners. We are in a position where we cannot do everything we have planned. And even with postponing the Route 42 expansion, as we did last week, we are not able to make our committed service starting on Wednesday, September 22nd, which is when UC Davis comes back into session in person for the first time in 18 months. And we have made certain commitments to UC Davis and to Unitrans to help them navigate their return to campus. And so we cannot do that with the drivers that we have currently. So that's why we're now going to talk about some of the temporary suspensions of the commuter service and then the reduced assistance that we want to continue to provide to UC Davis. I just want to say before I turn it over to Kristen, I want to actually invite Michael Klein, our general manager with Transdev, to give a few comments from his perspective on the driver shortage. And then I'll hand it over to Kristen to talk a bit more about the details of the staff recommendations with regard to the suspensions. But Michael, can I ask you to turn on your camera and join us?
Hello, good evening.
Hello.
Hello, Michael.
Hello, Mr. Chair. Where we're at, as far as within a couple of days of the first of the month, unexpectedly, we lost 9 operators. Also, right within the first week, we had 4 trainees leave at the same time. Majority combination of that is due to pay. So they started getting calls back or found other jobs that were offering them more starting, so regardless of the starting bonuses that we're doing right now, they're still looking at the immediate difference in pay. A lot of the questions back was, well, I can go drive for Amazon. Some were $17.50, but most of them around 20 to 21, and they don't have to deal with carrying passengers or getting a different license. Is most of what we got back. This all came on unexpectedly right around the 1st. Is where we fell into that. With as far as with the recommendation of the suspension of the routes, we currently have the exact amount of operators to cover the service come the 22nd at this point.
Okay. Well, thank you, Michael, for being here. I guess Autumn, would you and Michael be willing to take some questions on this part of the conversation before we get into the next stage?
Yeah, at your discretion, Mr. Chair, we're happy to take those questions now or go through the remainder of the presentation, and then you can ask questions of all staff, whatever is your pleasure.
Well, I'd ask a question. I guess we probably all have the question of what are we going to do about it, and so maybe you can describe what actions might be taken by Transdev and what you might be considering if there's anything at this point to address this operator shortage.
Is that I'm happy to share some of my thoughts, but I'm not sure if that was a question for me or for Mike.
Either one.
Okay, well, why don't I start, and then I'll invite Mike to share his perspective as well. Again, this is very much an active conversation at this moment. I will say, Transdev did recently provide a salary increase and new bonuses, as he alluded to. Those took effect September 1st. So we're hopeful that those will help. However, as Mike indicated, and as others have pointed out, the gap between our starting wages and the starting wages of other agencies around here there is still a gap. And so I think that is the fundamental issue that we need to address. And because of the way our contract is set up with Transdev, they can only raise wages so far until they're operating in the red. So in order for them to do that, we're going to have to look at potentially opening up our contract to basically pay them more so they can pay their drivers more. And as I've communicated, I think that that's something that we need to that we need to seriously consider. You know, obviously that won't be able to happen without action from the board. But I think that we are at a point where we're in uncharted territory here with this driver shortage. And, you know, I think that it's going to require some significant action on our part to get out of this hole.
Okay.
Mike, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, there's a lot of information we've been working on the last few days as far as the wage comps for the area and where we are. So as she actually hit it right on, we're not known still really what's the magic number to get folks in. Even those ones that have the higher rates, they're still having hiring issues. So we took that long until September 1. I'm sure the question came up, why did we not raise rates until September 1? We've been going through union negotiations since the beginning of the year. So we have to go through the process, and that's why it took us that long. Now, normally we do a certain percentage on an increase, and this time it actually was more than double what the normal increase would be, trying to get us, we were topping out as much as we could without being in the red to be able to make that a more desirable rate. So, more conversation is definitely welcome to find out a solution to get to that part. So the question out of the starting rate goes away, then it's just getting out there and explaining why we're a premier place to work.
Well, Michael, thank you, and thank you, Autumn. Colleagues, do you have questions before we turn to Kristen's portion of the presentation? I don't see any questions from the board at this point, so I think they're interested in hearing the rest and then answering questions, asking questions on the whole package. So Autumn, we're ready for Kristen, I guess, to go part.
Great. I'm just going to pull up some visuals for everyone. So I want to start by saying good evening to everyone. I see there's a lot of people on the call. So for those in the audience who do not know me, I'm Kristen Major, and I'm the Senior Planner here at the Yolo County Transportation District. As we think about this, one of the main things we want to do when we address the driver shortage is spread the pain so that no one jurisdiction or customer group is carrying all of the burden of the driver shortage on their own. With my portion of the presentation, I'm going to focus, as Autumn said, on item 5 and try to explain how staff made the difficult decision to recommend the temporary suspension of certain YOLO bus routes. Jose will then provide detail related to item 6 in the Unitrans service. As noted in the staff report, one of the factors we considered when we were trying to decide which services to reduce or suspend was to minimize the number of people impacted so that we could minimize harm. In this chart that we have up on the screen right now, you can see the data that we reviewed in order to estimate how many people could potentially be impacted on a route by route basis. The blue bars on the chart show the anticipated weekday ridership on the YOLO bus routes that we are currently operating. The darker blue color shows the average weekday ridership on YOLO bus routes in August 2021. So that was the most recent complete month for which we had data available. The light blue color on the chart shows the ridership by route prior to COVID. And we included this in order to give you a sense of what ridership might eventually return to once people start traveling more and working from home less. The orange bars on this chart show the anticipated ridership on Unitrans routes A, L, and Z. In August, as Autumn said, we had committed to operating those 3 routes in order to help Unitrans with its own student driver shortage. Jose Perez, as Autumn said, is going to focus on that issue and item 6 later in the presentation. So I just want to point out, when we first saw these bars, the thing that stood out to us in the dark blue section is just that the lowest ridership is on those commute and express routes right now. I mean, I don't want to reduce people to numbers, but in essence, like I said, we're trying to minimize harm, and 43, 43R, 45, and 230 are 4 of the lowest ridership routes currently. On the other end of the spectrum, Route 42 has the highest ridership both now and prior to the pandemic. And we really suspect that ridership would have grown significantly on that route had we increased the frequencies from 60 minutes to 30 minutes as we had originally planned. But as we noted before, we wanted to spread the pain. We didn't want to just cut all of the underperforming routes in favor for the Route 42. So we delayed last week the launch of the Route 42, and that led us with the tough decision we still needed to cut more to suspend service on the commuter and express routes. While it's really difficult to reduce or suspend service for any of our customers, another factor we wanted to consider when we were looking at service suspensions was trying to make sure that we didn't leave folks completely stranded with no public transportation options at all. Of course, there will always be instances where we're unable to prevent that, which is difficult, but we did try to evaluate whether customers had other public transit alternatives in the vicinity of their current routes. So this map shows the city of Davis, and it shows the location of the 43, 43R, and 230 in relation to the Route 42, which will still be running. What you're not seeing on this map is the complete Unitrans bus network, which provides additional coverage in much of the city of Davis. Now, of course, we're not saying that this is an ideal situation for the 43 and 230 riders by any means, because we do know that it can be really difficult to transfer, especially when you're transferring to a route that only comes every 60 minutes. And we know that the 42 has a significantly slower travel time than the express and commute routes because it makes so many more stops. But we are hoping that it at least provides a lifeline for those who don't have any other transportation options. Here we have a map of the city of Woodland, which shows the location of Route 45 in red. That's the route proposed for suspension, and it shows that route in relation to Route 42 and to the local Woodland buses, which are routes 211 and 212, which are shown in blue and orange. I do want to note, again, this is not ideal. Lots of transferring may need to happen, and that is not pleasant. But for those riders who do have automobile access, and we're hoping some people may have that, there is good park and ride options for Route 42. One is this County Fair Mall stop that's shown prominently on this map. And then if I go back to Davis, there is a park and ride lot at Mace and 2nd, which is a good park and ride option for people if they have the ability to get there to take the 42. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jose. Oops, sorry, Jose, so that he can talk more about item 6 and the temporary operating assistance in Davis.
And Jose, as you began, just turn to the board once again. If any of you have questions on Kristen's presentation now, then let me know. Otherwise, we can ask questions at the end of the presentations. Is there any board question on what you've heard so far? I don't see any, so we'll hear the rest of the presentation. Thank you, Jose.
Thank you, Chair Saylor, and thank you, Kristen, for leaving this slide up. The focus of my part of this presentation is to discuss the recommended revisions to the temporary Unitrans assistance, or I should say temporary local fixed route assistance that YOLA Bus had been planning to operate. Earlier this year, we had made presentations to the board regarding some offered of assistance to our partner Unitrans locally in Davis. They're facing some significant staffing shortages as well with respect to drivers and available trained employees. And so again, earlier this year in April, May timeline, we began coordinating with them what that assistance may look like. The original plan and had been up until earlier this month was to provide the assistance in the form of YOLA Bus operating local routes the A line, the L line, and the Z line, effectively all-day service at 30-minute frequencies apiece. And it was estimated that that would require 12 operators in order to provide that level of service. At the time when we had committed to the city of Davis, to Unitrans, and to the university, we were confident we would have the sufficient staffing to provide that level of temporary assistance as the school academic year began, from which Unitrans would be able to recruit additional drivers to help meet their staffing needs. Once we were made aware of our own internal staffing shortages, we immediately realized that we would not be able to provide the same level of assistance originally offered or intended locally within Davis. And so we worked together to, again, spread the pain amongst all of the planned expansions and available services amongst our member jurisdictions and our service areas to identify what level of service could we provide to this highly anticipated, highly expected, and kind of already materializing demand locally in Davis. And so, again, in coordination with our partners and stakeholders and TransDev, our focus was to develop a scenario that was going to end up being reliable and sustainable in the near term as we conduct our own staffing, recruitment, and retention efforts to get to a point where we can continue providing as much service as we can to the public. Again, staff's priority in developing the recommendation and the revised scenario in Davis was to make sure that what we do publish and recommend is feasible and reliable, rather than overcommitting and under-delivering. Wanted to make sure that what we can commit to is something that we can put out there reliably with as much information to the public as possible. And so what we are recommending our board consider tonight is a revision to the original temporary assistance. It remains a temporary assistance until Unitrans is able to complete their staffing requirements and training. However, instead of operating the A line, the L line, and the Z line concurrently, Yola Bus will be able to operate, or is committed to operating, if our board approves it, the A line at 30-minute frequencies for the entire service day, and the L line at 60-minute frequencies, or about once an hour. And the current plan is to operate those trips on the L line near the top of the hour. The schedules, as proposed, are within the staff report for item number 6. And then with respect to the Z line, Yola Bus is not able to reliably commit to operating that service at this time. But Unitrans, I believe, does have plans to, they made some revisions of their own once they found out that we weren't able to meet the original planned level of service. So Unitrans themselves modified some of the services that they would be providing, and they are going to be operating service along the Z line, I believe, at the hour frequency. And we do have, I see as an attendee currently, the general manager of Unitrans, Jeff Flynn. And if the board has would appreciate or would like any additional information or clarity with respect to Unitrans operations and situations, I'm sure he would be pleased to provide comment. Otherwise, I would be happy to provide additional clarity. On the screen is a map of the proposed services that we will be operating temporarily in Davis, the A line and the L line here in kind of yellow and orange, and also an overlay of the existing Route 42 to identify what Yola Bus services locally in Davis would look like should the recommended service levels be approved effective the 22nd.
Jose, thank you. I think it would be probably appropriate at this point to shift to the gallery to take the screen share off for the moment. And unless board members have questions that require a use of the graphic. Colleagues, are there questions about any of the parts of the presentations before we open the public hearing on item 5 and then hear public comment on item 6? Is there any question from members of the board?
I'd appreciate comment from the director of Unitrans, as I've never met him. I'd like his impressions on this.
Thank you. That's Director Stallard has asked to give Jeff Flynn, the Unitrans director, an opportunity to address the board. Jeff, are you present? Hi.
You're currently muted, Jeff. There you go.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Yeah, so I'll provide some general comments. We've been working with the YCTD team now for a few months on this ongoing issue that we've had at Unitrans with our driver shortage that we've been predicting now for quite a while based on recruitment numbers and based on our own high turnover model where we employ students from UC Davis. So we naturally have 100% turnover about every 4 years. So we're always replacing about a third of our staff every year, more or less, 25 to 33%. This plan is one that I know the YCTD team has really agonized over and worked really closely with me and Director Dulcich and others at the university to try to come up with the best compromise that will hopefully get all of us through this temporary crisis or emergency that we're currently in. Unitrans did have to cut back now our E and F lines back to 60 minutes because we are now taking back the Z line, which was originally planned to go to YCTD temporarily. You know, there's no easy options here, and Unitrans is experiencing a huge influx of ridership. Just in 7 days, our ridership has quintupled. You heard that right. It's gone up 5 times. So in 7 days, we've gone from 1,500 people a day to over 5,000 a day. Over the weekend, we had our highest ridership weekend in history. It was 15% higher than any weekend we've ever experienced in 53 years at Unitrans. We do expect for ridership to come back to near pre-pandemic levels. So we really appreciate any assistance that YCTD and you all can provide to us at this point. Matt, I'm not sure if you would like to add additional comments on behalf of all of us at the university.
Jeff, I'll say thank you for your overview. That was great. And to introduce myself, Matt Dulcich with UC Davis Local Government Relations. And I do want to hear a lot of the public comment that might augment some of the written comments that we received this afternoon. I know those were really well thought out and detailed and provided a lot of recommendations for some next steps. I want to really get to that next. But I do also want to thank staff for their really heroic efforts to respond from September 1st through today with options and working carefully and really trying to think of both the short-term fix to provide the temporary service and then longer-term efforts. So thank you to Autumn and her team for all of that. And I am eager to hear public comments.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff and Matt. Tom, did that get to what you were interested in? Okay. Mr. Frericks, Director Frericks, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick question for staff. I think we'll probably hear some of this in public comment, but I just wanted to sort of ask a quick question around, some folks may actually be eligible to utilize YCTD's paratransit services. And so, in lieu of the express bus services, and so curious if we could hear a little bit of an update from staff with regard to if there has been any sort of homework done on if there is an opportunity to shift people who might otherwise be using express bus services to have them shift to the paratransit service. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Director Frericks. I can speak to that, and Jose, feel free to chime in as well. So, as you know, paratransit services are available to anyone who cannot utilize fixed route services for whatever reason. And so we have had a number of people that we've been in conversation with where the 43 or other express services work for them, but the 42 does not work for them because the length of the trip is difficult for them with with the way that they are abled. And so in those cases, we have fast-tracked paratransit applications. There can be a kind of a long delay in paratransit applications, but we've been working to, as quickly as possible, process those applications and get people so that they're able to, should the board take this action tonight, able to kind of very quickly pivot to using paratransit.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
And who should folks contact if they feel they have a specific need of that sort?
So we do have customer service representatives at TransDev who are specifically that is their job is to focus on that, and I'm happy to provide that phone number for folks. It's 530-662-2630, and it's extension 2813.
Okay. maybe there. Thank you for that. Other questions from the board before we open the public hearing? Okay, I don't see any. The public hearing that we'll be having on item 5 is a legal proceeding that involves a little bit of official action. We'll open the public hearing and then we'll allow individuals to address us. This is because it's a change in service. What I would ask is that people who are participating via the Zoom call here use the raise hand feature that you'll see at the bottom of your screen to indicate that you're interested in speaking during the public hearing. And we will ask that you keep your comments to 2 minutes so that we can be sure to hear everyone. And with that, and we'll be timing this, and with that, are there any people who would like to address us? I'll hereby open the public hearing officially on item 5. And we have 2 individuals who I can see. And after we've heard from the public commenters in this evening's meeting, we'll hear for a summary of the comments that we've received in written form. So our first speaker, and Jose, will you help me by keeping time? And if I miss somebody, let me know. And the first.
Yes, Chair Silla, I'll absolutely be keeping a log of who's had an opportunity to speak based on the screen names and keep the timer.
Thank you, sir. So the public hearing has been opened with a gavel. You can hear that in the distance. And the first speaker is Lisette Walker. Please begin, Lisette.
Yeah, hello, everyone. Thank you for all of your work on this. It's a disappointment to me as well as you, for sure. You have my written comments. So I don't have much to add, except that with regard to the 42, I particularly wanted to emphasize that adding or making the intervals shorter, half an hour instead of an hour, and eliminating stops seems like a particularly poor idea because, for instance, my daughter then just can't ride it because the stops are way too far from where she gets on and where she gets off. It's better if it takes longer than if it's just not accessible at all. And as far as the paratransit, we're on board with that. We'll use it. She doesn't want to use it. She wants to be included in the regular community like everyone else. And we hope it comes back to that. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Lisette. And our next speaker is identified as Gautam. You have 2 minutes, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Mr. Chair. Can I begin? All right, great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to start off by saying that I really appreciate everyone who works at YCTD for helping me to get to work every day. I recognize it's been tough to operate all these routes in these hard times, and the YOLO bus drivers have done this with care for their community and a positive energy that makes me excited to commute every day. Despite all the love I have for YOLO bus and all the respect I have for all of you, the unexpected suspension of all the commuter routes from Davis at such a short notice is something I have to push back. I calculated my commute time this week, and the 2:30 takes me approximately 40 minutes to and from the office. For the same stops, the 42 routes would take me an hour and 10 minutes. This may seem like a small amount, but it adds an hour to my daily commute, which has multiplying, rippling effects in my day-to-day life. The combination of reaching home late and going to sleep early derails my time for personal commitments and responsibilities. In addition, it also takes away time from working on my long-term goals, such as exercising and applying to grad school. While I now take Route 230, prior to my move this month, I used to take Route 43. And that route is being used daily by a significant number of people. These are people I see at the bus stop in the afternoon every day, and the bus is quite filled up, especially for these times. These people are also picked up from all over Davis, and getting to the new 42 route in the morning may be inconvenient for many. Many people do not have cars to reach a further bus stop, and Unitrans lines, unfortunately, are often indirect. I would also like to state that it was not easy for me to find out about this hearing. I was just told by 2 bus drivers that the express routes would stop on the 22nd of this month and was not told that there is a hearing scheduled. Many people who commute with me every day likely do not know about this hearing, and I feel like I'm representing them today. I don't think we have an accurate estimate of the volume of people who might be opposed to this proposal. In conclusion, I would like to state that this proposal is going to affect the lives of a significant number of people, and some of these express routes should continue in some capacity. I would understand a further reduction of frequencies and also an elimination of one of the Davis commuter routes, but removing a route like the 43 would be unfair to many. Previous comments stated that driving for them is an alternative, but I don't own a car, and nor do many people who take buses. I really would request you to keep some of these times open for the Davis routes. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you all.
Thank you, Gautam. And our next speaker is Eloisa Sabalas.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Oh, okay. I wasn't sure because it said that I was muted. So my concern, well, first of all, I appreciate you guys like taking the time to address the matter. So my concern is I take the 45 Express every morning at 6:18 and I catch it at Ross. So, because that is the only route at that point that is running for me to get to my job in downtown Sacramento. Before, pre-COVID, I would take the 42B, which would be the first one that if I'm mistaken, would be the first one that would leave from Woodland to downtown Sacramento. Now, would there be an alternative route that would leave that early? Because, I mean, removing the 45, yes, I understand there's 2 45 Express, which I don't understand the need of having 2, but at least being able to just keep 1 would work just fine. Because I'm not the only person at that time that catches the bus at Ross. There's another about 6 ladies that catch it with me that work for the state as well. So, you know, I just kind of want to see what will be another alternative. And then the fact that I don't have a vehicle that would take me from there, from Woodland to downtown, it would have to cost me more having to request an Uber or a Lyft to take me there every single morning.
Okay. We hear your comment and we'll move on. You have, thank you for that. Our next speaker is identified as telephone number 1. Well, it's the last 4 digits are 3210. Is there a caller 3210? Talking is permitted. You would need to unmute at your end. There you go. Your caller 3210, it's your turn to speak and you're unmuted. Okay, we can't hear you. Are you there? Now you're muted, and now you're not. So we'll come back to you. The next speaker is Connor Bright. Connor. You can unmute at your end if you have a mute button. It's pressed, so unmute. There you go.
Yes, am I able to be heard?
We can hear you loud and clear.
All right. Hey, so thank you very much for putting on this meeting. You know, I ask that you don't suspend bus route 43. Essentially, it's vital to my being able to get to work and then pick up my kids from daycare on time. And, you know, I think if canceling the 43 is definitely going to affect my mobility and the mobility of other riders off the express route. And I do think that, you know, if that's not justification enough to ask for that, I guess I would just simply point out that, you know, I think reducing services to a staffing shortage ignores the fundamental programmatic purpose of YOLO bus and is perhaps in conflict with your mission statement, which seems to be to provide just transportation options. And it also, pardon me, seems to be a step towards irrelevancy. You know, I guess from my perspective, it seems like there's a kind of a national issue that was brought up, and you know, just different challenges that we've had with COVID. It's pretty much affected everyone. I would just kind of like to say that, you know, I think with appropriate response for challenges are to sort of address them head on and attempt to adapt and to conquer them. You know, I basically just kind of ask that you try different approaches to fulfilling your hiring needs rather than simply just cancel the services. I see that I've expired my time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Connor. We appreciate you being with us. Stephanie Manansala.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. So yes, my name is Stephanie Manansala. I'm a Davis resident and I'm a state of California employee. I take the 43 Express to and from work from Davis to downtown Sacramento. My family and friends are surprised when I tell them I love taking YOLO Bus to work. The 43 Express has been pleasant, it's been easy, convenient, and so it's an understatement to say I'm disappointed and dismayed that YOLO Bus is considering suspending this route, particularly that this would begin the day after tomorrow. That leaves me and my bus mates in the lurch for transportation to work with next to no notice. The 42 route stops and the timetable as a proposed substitution for the 43 Express do not work for me. They're not even close to comparable to the Express service, as others have mentioned. And therefore, if the 43 Express service is suspended, I regrettably will no longer be riding YOLO Bus. I would add that if the board votes to discontinue Express services, then I think it's incumbent upon YOLO Bus to reimburse me and all other Express pass holders for the suspension period from September 22nd to 30th, as we paid the additional charge in good faith for a full month of Express service. And I would like to know if the board have considered that and how you plan to address it. It is my sincere hope, though, that instead you will vote to keep at least some Express service routes. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Stephanie. Jose, I don't see any other commenters. Do you have anybody else in queue, or am I missing someone?
Apologies, Chair Saylor. No additional requests. However, I do see caller ending in 3210 is back. I don't know if you wanted to attempt to get their comments again.
Yes, if we can, that'd be good.
And so I have allowed them to talk. Caller ending in 3210, if you wish to unmute your phone, hopefully you'll be able to comment.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Terry McIntyre, and I have been taking the 45 for 7 years, including all through the entire pandemic. And though I'm upset that you're looking at suspending the 45 for a period of time, I thought, okay, the 42 A and B, I can live with that. They're stopped somewhat close to my office. Then when I looked at the new schedule that you guys are proposing for the 42 A and B, that completely blew that out of the water, because I would have to walk 9 blocks from the bus stop to my office on 17th Street and then back. And doing that at night and when it's raining or anything, and walking through Capitol Park is extremely dangerous, and I'm not comfortable with that. So I can appreciate that you want to, suspend the 45, and I know the 42 A and B, the route changes isn't happening right now, but don't change the number of stops. Keep 13th and J, because that's a couple blocks away from my office, and I can totally live with walking there. But it's walking to 9th Street. That's my huge problem. And I'm not the only one who takes the bus who works, past 9th Street. So I think it made me feel like you guys don't even care at all about those of us who commute. So I'm just asking that you reconsider changing the 42 A and B stops and keep them the way that they are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Those are important points. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to provide an important point of clarification, which is that we are not moving ahead with the route and stop changes on the 42A and B. Those were part and parcel with the increase in frequency. And so we will not be making any changes to the 42A and B. They will continue to stop where they are, where they have been stopping for the foreseeable future.
Thank you, Autumn. So that would appear to be helpful for that speaker. I don't see any other comments requested during the public hearing. Jose, do you have any others? And I'm going to hope, I think we have received and provided to all the members of the board the written comments. Is it sufficient to say, and I've read them, and I assume that others have, is it sufficient to say we've received those comments?
Correct, Director Saylor. Those that were received in time to be circulated to the board have been, and anything else that were to come in would have been provided to you during the meeting tonight.
All right.
And Chair Saylor, we did receive one email as a public comment. If you would like, I could read that into the record. It appears to be fairly brief.
All right, please do. And then we'll close the public hearing after that comment, unless I hear from somebody else. Go ahead.
The comment reads, hello. If you suspend the 45 express bus to Woodland, could you please increase the 42 bus times to 1/2 hour during work commute hours, especially after 4 p.m.? I do not feel safe waiting in the dark in downtown Sacramento for an hour or more when a 42 bus is delayed. Thank you, Suzanne Grimshaw.
Very good. I don't see any other commenters. We will close the public hearing. You'll hear the distant sound of a gavel. That was it. And Autumn, did you have any responses to the comments and questions that you've heard before we turn to the board for discussion and action?
I do, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I want to emphasize one thing, first of all, that we are not talking about eliminating these services. We're talking about temporarily suspending them. And I just want to emphasize that we don't want these changes any more than you do. We want to bring these services back as soon as we possibly can. We hope it will be weeks. It may be months. We simply don't know at this point. But I want everyone to understand that we are not eliminating these services, and this is not sort of a backdoor attempt to get rid of any of these services. And we know, and you saw from the slide that Kristen shared, that ridership on these services has been high in the past. On some of these routes, and we know that many people rely on them. So I want to emphasize our goal is to get through this period as quickly as possible. Again, as Jose indicated, we're trying to be conservative about what we can commit to so that we're not letting anyone down. We don't want to say we can do it and then just have the bus not show up. We'd rather let you know that you had better make other options rather than promising you service that then we just can't deliver day in and day out. So there, we are doing our best to try to spread the pain, but there is pain, and I don't want to sugarcoat that people are going to be impacted, but this is a zero-sum game here. If we maintain some of these services, then we need to cut elsewhere, and so we look forward to hearing the board's direction on this. And we'll do our best to make whatever changes we need to make to do the best we can with the driver resources we have.
We've heard from a number of public commenters in writing, so we have their email addresses. Those who are speaking tonight, we may or may not have their contact information. This is dynamic as we are able to add back. Will we wait to add things back, or will we maybe begin adding back as permitted?
We will add back as soon as we possibly can, and it will be a dynamic situation because we don't want to just have driver resources that we're not utilizing. So we absolutely would ask all riders to stay in contact with us, to sign up for our alerts, to make sure that you're aware of the changes as they come, and we want to let you know as soon as possible when these bus services are restored.
Well, thank you very much for those responses, Autumn. Colleagues, are there any comments or questions? I see Mr. Frericks has got his hand up.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I have a question. This is Jose. 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 I have a question. This
Go ahead, Lucas.
Yeah, I just was looking to see if others had, thanks, Mr. Chair, appreciate it. I think a couple quick points. I mean, the pandemic has obviously continued to throw one curveball after another at us. And this is just another sort of, unfortunate result from the pandemic. I mean, no one wants to vote to reduce service, but I don't really see any choice right now but to temporarily stop the express bus services. And it's absolutely due to this extreme driver shortage. I mean, and we're not alone in this. And I mean, yes, this affects us here in Yolo County and the Sacramento region, but there's been a national shortage of bus drivers and other transit agencies and school bus drivers. Bus driving across the country has been affected by this. So, I recognize that doesn't do us any good because we're talking about here in Yolo County and our communities, but I just don't see any choice but to temporarily stop the express bus services. Appreciate the opportunity to make a few comments.
Thank you, Director Frericks. Director Lauren, Jesse, your turn.
Thank you. Thank you for hearing my comments. My first question is, I heard the question, will we be reimbursing pass holders that are affected by these routes? That's my first question.
That's a great question. I don't have an answer to that right now. And I would call on Jose if he does. I don't have any experience with doing this. But if the agency does have experience with it, I hope one of our senior staff will educate me.
I apologize. I was just going to say the current policy and practice is that we do not offer refunds, but given in light of the current situations, we do have, I believe, the technical capability to do so. I rely on our finance director, deputy director of finance, Janice Bryan, on the technical capability of doing so. Considering that, we absolutely can consider that at the staff level and make a recommendation. And I do not believe that if that is something that is desired or by the board that we would need to come back to the board, we could do so as an administrative action. Regardless, we would need to confirm that and then make our suggestion to our board.
I would just support if that can be an administrative action, that it would be an administrative action. And then I was listening pretty intently to the beginning, and I kind of wanted to get back to a little bit of the conversation with Michael Klein. And before saying that, I just want to say I'm deeply saddened, and I feel a lot of stress over this. That what we do affects people's lives. If there's a silver lining to it, it's that everybody on the call and everybody that emailed had resounding support for the buses. They depend on them, and they let us know that we matter, that what we do matters. So that would be the silver lining. But what I heard was that nine drivers resigned pretty close or at the same day of getting bonuses, and that gave us like a very quick shortage. But what I heard Autumn say was that, and that's what we're reacting to right now. But what I heard Autumn say was that that you looked at records over a year or 2 year time period, and that this was a consistent problem for a very long time. It wasn't this drivers being temporary and then having to have constant replacement has been an ongoing issue. So in my mind, we act on the emergency that is before us, and we do the best job we can. But I would be interested in having working with TransDev on maybe having a staffing consultant, having maybe not just a windshield survey like what was provided at the beginning of, SAC-RT gives $21 an hour and we're only giving 17, like something that's a little bit deeper than that to see, what else is going on. Is classification and compensation aligned? And is there anything else that we could do long-term to retain drivers? Maybe it is climate. Maybe, that I would just like us to solve the problem as the emergency, but then to also look into the long-term health of the organization and relationship with TransDev, because we need to be able to depend on drivers, and the public needs to know that when we say we have routes that we're dependable. So I just really feel strongly about that. And no matter what, however we vote today, we know that this is an ominous responsibility for people's lives, and that we all take it seriously and deeply, the public trust. So those are my comments.
Very strong. Thank you, Jesse. Autumn, do you have any response to that comment?
I mean, I would say, as in our conversations with TransDev, we know that they are also thinking about, it's not just about money. How do we make sure that drivers do feel appreciated, that they are recognized? They have very difficult jobs. They literally have people's lives in their hands every day. And so I know that is something that's on their mind as well, that we need to be looking at the full picture of the experience that we're providing for the staff that run these buses every day. We haven't talked about the idea of a staffing consultant. I think it's an interesting idea, and I think we should put it on the table. I personally, when we look at compensation, it's going to cost us money. This is a zero-sum game when it comes to money as well. And so if we're going to be paying more money, I want to make sure that that we're designing a program that is going to meet our goals. And so having some independent expertise that can help us assess the market and assess what the needs are of the workforce and make sure that we are coming up with a package that's going to work. I'm all for having as many brains in the room for that decision as we can.
Thank you. And I just, I think looking at who has private buses, who has private drivers versus public drivers, and what's their retention. I mean, I just think there's a lot of questions that in our future, we'll have to go a little deeper on. And I appreciate your heartfelt comments and your leadership. Thank you.
We have Chris, then Tom, then Matt. Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just a couple of quick things to the staff. Autumn, thank you for your leadership, and the staff for jumping on this quickly. I know it's been a eventful first couple of weeks for you as our executive director, but all the right actions I can see from the staff report from where we are and assess what we need to do next are going the right path. So I applaud you for leading the team, you and Jose, through this exercise and making sure we're making the right choices. I agree with the approach on the choices, and I don't want to diminish at all. I think my colleague, Ms. Loran, brought up some really salient points that I want to underscore a little bit about. We do see the value that we have on people's lives, and it's important to consider. And I think this situation has come to us, as Mr. Berg just said, come to us, some of it by the nature of the pandemic and what it's brought, but also just by nature of the industry or in the huge amount of transformation happening in the industry. So I think both those things, though, are for us to manage from here on out. And I think my message, so I have, as everyone else on this board, a huge amount of respect for our customers, and that we know we're impacting lives. We know this is a disruption, and we take it seriously. And I don't take this vote for granted that I don't like making cuts for this kind of reason, but it's necessary given the circumstance and the support, the action and the approach. More so, I do want to provide just a little bit, underscore some of the what we do next, and that is as we deal with the emergency at hand and deal with making it a necessary effect that we do act urgently as we are. But I do think there needs to be a good ample amount of thoughtfulness. I am concerned about the nature of the relationship and contract that we have, and making sure it meets today's standards. I mean, I know we got into, I don't want to go into detail of that, but I know that this is a sticky part of our job as well, but we need to take the right action. As we all know, being in the transit industry has been hugely, business for the last few years has been hugely different than we've known. It's been around us, and now it's really having an impact on our ability to maintain a good workforce. So I want to be able to say to the staff that let's be thoughtful, think about facts and data, and make sure we are really looking at the root causes and seeing if we can address them with the same amount of urgency we have in dealing with the emergency at hand. And lastly, just in the interim, because we don't know, once we can get past those things, if we can think of other alternatives or services that we might be able to partner with, that's one of our values as well, is finding partnerships. I know you've talked to Shock RT, you've talked to others. I know in the past when there's been highway changes, we've even brought in Capital Corridor to bring a lifeline between Davis and downtown Sacramento. We don't have light rail here yet, Yellow County, but maybe Capital Corridor might be another alternative as a way to get people, find a steady way to get them here. But I think as much as we can find those sorts of creative ways, that's what we wanted. It's the values we have, right? Is being resourceful and acting urgently. So again, thank you for the time tonight. Thanks to all who called in and provided comments.
Thanks, Chris. Director Stallard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, colleagues. I appreciate all the good thinking shared. I certainly appreciate the member of the public who took the time to email us, as well as those who've spoken this evening. The one thing I want to say is I want to make sure we remember the responsibility to produce the workers lies with the contractor. That's the contract we entered into. It's their responsibility. So I don't want us to take primary responsibility for this. We have secondary responsibility because if they don't do it, we've got to get it done. But my feeling is we need to be on the contractor and say, what are your strategies for addressing this situation? It sounds like you had noticed for a long time, and yet nothing has come to this board that a problem was brewing. So, maybe that's a little harsh, but the fact of the matter is, contractor, you've got to come to us with a series of options that you're pursuing to convince us that you're worthy of continuing as our contractor. Transdev is a major national, maybe international transit contracting organization. I mean, why should we hire a traffic or a staffing consultant? Theoretically, they should have them, and they should have immediate ways to deal with this issue. So that's my thought. Is Transdev is in the first responsibility position. I want to hear what they have to say. If they're not ready tonight, I hope they're ready soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Are you asking for a response at this point, or are you putting?
I don't feel I need a response. I leave it to Autumn as our executive director to have the difficult conversation. I think they need to be developing a series of remediation options.
Agreed. We'll turn to Mr. Dulcich, and Jesse, I see that your hand has popped up again, but Matt's up next.
Thank you, Chair Saylor, and I'll be brief. A lot of what I was going to say has been said already. I think this circumstance is really difficult, and the balanced effort that the staff have brought forward is probably a really good way to go right now, with the idea that as soon as possible, services would be restored. And I do have just a few quick questions for staff that might help on that issue, particularly if you've, for Autumn, been thinking about the priorities for reinstituting some services that might be useful for some of the commenters tonight. And then whether in the public comments you heard anything else that you might be able to do some outreach and help out with. Particularly, I think our first caller, Lizette Walker, talked about changes to the 42 that would affect her daughter. And I wasn't sure if later you said the 42 changes are not a problem, but either way, it sounded like that might be one circumstance where some direct outreach could help a particular rider. So that's really it. The other would be mentioning to our listeners and riders that the Fairfield Sassoon Transit might be another option for getting express service that goes from the Davis campus to downtown Sacramento. It probably doesn't work for everyone, but there might be a few folks who would be able to shift to that service for this interim period. But that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you,
want to
Director.
respond?
Yeah, I would like to respond. I think you raised an important point. Well, to respond on the first caller's comment, Lizette Walker, on the changes to the 42, it is true, those changes are not happening. So that is not a concern. And I did speak with Ms. Walker personally earlier this morning to reassure her that there are going to be no changes to the 42 route and stops. At this time, we don't have a plan to do that. In terms of I think you raised a really important question about kind of what are our priorities for restoring service as drivers become available. I don't have a good answer to that question. I think that, you know, we're going to learn a lot over the next couple of weeks in terms of what happens in Davis. You know, as we heard from Jeff Flynn earlier, we're already seeing signs that there's maybe a bit of a tsunami coming in Davis with the return to campus. So, you know, clearly, you know, if we see a crisis developing there, you know, we need to be aware of that. We will also want to see how the Unitrans, as the students return, you know, I'm hopeful that Unitrans will be able to recruit and train their own, you know, workforce quickly, and that they can solve, you know, their own problem and allow us to focus, you know, our resources on restoring our service. So, you know, I'm not trying to punt on your question, but I feel like there's just so much we don't know here on the eve of all of these big changes that are happening. I think we want to look at the data and understand, you know, where the need is the greatest as, you know, as those driver resources become available. You know, and another factor I'll just add, not to belabor this, but is when is the state of California start bringing back their workforce in earnest? Because that's also clearly a huge issue. You know, if we see that, you know, everyone is returning to downtown Sacramento, then clearly that also creates a real important demand that we would need to balance.
Oh, just before I turn to colleagues for a second round of comment, I'll just mention that individual riders have been in contact with Autumn and her team, and they've been working to do some troubleshooting and problem solving and identification of resources for individuals. And in particular, that 42 doesn't solve the problem for the individual that you just mentioned. And so Autumn has been working directly with the family to make sure that there's at least one or more option available. And if others have similar sorts of asks, I think the Autumn mentioned the customer service call, and if we should make sure that we arm those customer service response staff with the options that are being generated here, Capitol Corridor, Fairfield Sassoon, anything else that we can suggest to people to address their specific needs. And we're very, this is nobody's first choice, and this is a temporary deal. We know that even a temporary change like this affects people's lives in a serious way. So we're working on it. Now we have comment from Jesse, and then I think maybe Lucas raised his hand again, but maybe that's okay. So Jesse, go ahead.
Yeah, my comment was just to clarify that it's TransDev that should be hiring a staffing consultant and doing the work, not us. It shouldn't be our money. It should be their burden because it's their staffing. That's all. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I think your initial comment and several, I think Chris also and Tom both referred to accountability and making sure that we have the service that we're paying for. And if we see an issue that's going to hit us in the face in a week, we ought to be dealing with it today. Okay, well, we've and we also, I think it's very clear that this board is very appreciative of the problem-solving work that has been taking place, that Autumn and Jose and others have been engaged in with Unitrans and regional transit with our riders. It's not a place any of us want to be at. It's definitely, it pretty much sucks, actually. And we are going to have to soldier forward here and solve this problem, not just for the emergency time that we've got and the temporary service curtailments that we're dealing with, but we don't want to have this happen again. So we're gonna work on this from a long-term perspective as well. Colleagues, are we ready for a motion on item 5? Lucas, did you have a comment or motion?
Yeah, I'm just going to make the motion that we, we approve the temporary route suspensions of the express services 43, 43R, 45, and 230.
All right, Mr. Frericks has made a motion. Is there a second?
Lauren, second. Oh, give it to Chris.
All right, so Ledesma seconds the motion. So is there any further discussion? All right, so it's here we go. So let's have a motion by Frericks, second by Ledesma. Please call the roll.
City of Davis,
Aye.
City of West Sacramento,
Aye.
City of Winters,
Aye.
City of Woodland,
Aye.
Yolo County.
Aye. I got to say, we've had a lot of motions on this board over the years. I've been a member since 2015, I think, and this is the one that I have liked the least to have to do, and that's so really it's not pleasant to do that, and it's been heartbreaking to hear the various impacts that are happening. So we'll move on from here. Item 6 now, we have not had public comment directly on item 6. This is on the revision to the support for Unitrans. We had initially envisioned a much more robust service level for Unitrans to support that part of our regional mobility network. And this recommendation is to have a more kind of scaled back support. Autumn, do you have any comments further on this part of the presentation?
No, Mr. Chair, and just to say, I do not believe that we have received any public comment on this agenda item.
Okay, board members, I'm going to open it for public comment. Is there do any of you have questions about this before we do that? All right, I'll open for public comment on item 6. I don't see any hands raised. Is there anyone on the call with us who would like to comment on item 6, the revised support for the Unitrans service? Okay, I don't see any comments on that, so we'll move to board action. Mr. Frericks.
Yeah, I was going to move the item.
Is there a second? Jesse, are you seconding it? Okay, you're on mute, but we'll say yes. So motion by Frericks and second by Loren. And so with that, let's call the roll.
City of Davis,
Aye.
City of West Sacramento,
Aye.
City of Winters,
Aye.
City of Woodland,
Aye.
Yolo County.
Aye.
It's unanimous in favor.
All right. Very good. Let's see, that brings us to would be item 7, which is adjournment. Autumn, do you have anything further you'd like to say on for the good of the cause?
No, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Thank you very much. And want to appreciate all of the people who've taken the time to be here and to share your comments and to encourage you to reach out if there's anything we can do in the days and weeks as you're working through your options. Just let us know how we can support you.
I think the board is very interested in making sure that anyone who's purchased their Express card has the opportunity to recoup their investment. I think it'd be good for anybody who is interested in keeping in touch on the service renewals or returns, that they give us their emails so that we can communicate with them, because it'd be easier if we can do that. And if they track our website so that they can follow that. Tom, did you have your hand up?
I would respectfully say, Mr. Chair, it is gratifying to hear the affirmation of the importance of transit. We wouldn't be sitting on this board if we didn't share that affirmation. And so, it's great to hear that how important it is, and it hurts for everyone to disappoint. I would just encourage everybody to do their best to, let's just say, extend their flexibility as much as they can to work through some of these other options. I thought it was wonderful to hear the train suggested as one option, and maybe the Solano bus, coming through Davis. So let's just all pull together as best we can to make sure everybody gets where they need to be. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Tom. I think that we all share that, every single part of your comment. So with that, our next meeting is a regular meeting. It's October 11. And look forward to seeing you all then. And good work. Good work, people. I'm sorry we couldn't satisfy everyone's concerns tonight, but good work in getting to where we are. We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.